Hey, don't underestimate the power of dessert spells. Some witches can use them as deadly weapons. Following up on the last episode from 2 weeks ago, yeah, sorry about the delay guys, Pop was featured in the cold opener saying that she was gonna replace her sister. I would make a joke here, but this is way too true about the mindset that most modern sequels go by these days. Just replace the old cast with the new up and hip youngsters. How's that working out for you? Obviously, they didn't change the title of the show because that would require a lot more alterations to the opening, which, yeah, we were getting the second version of after 2 cores worth of episodes. And much like many modern Precure version 2 openings, it was kind of half-assed, as they only made small changes, in this case just putting a couple of new cuts with Ojamajo Pop and the original trio and their new wands. I will say, both are at least well animated, especially the latter, though it would be nice if we could add Pop to these last 2 cuts at the very least. The episode proper opened with Doremi, of course, trying to silence her sister after she had stumbled upon their little secret. They asked if there was some sort of spell that could fix all of this, which, yeah, not only is that a bit too much of a Deus Ex Machina, but it's also forbidden magic. So, of course, as all of that previous stuff pretty much confirmed, she was going to become an apprentice too. And while hesitant at first, Doremi began to relish the idea of finally having some power over her overconfident sibling. Okay, let me just check something first, and yep, that's a good amount of cringe on my skin. This was also one of the rare occasions where I agreed with the Mr. and Mrs. Though of course, they also let the kindergartner work at the shop because who gives a damn about child labor laws at this point. Anyway, in order to make Pop a full apprentice, they needed one more tap. Thus, they turned to Della, who I guess didn't mind the fact that the Mahodo had switched ownership again. I mean, I get that she's a neutral party, but you'd think she'd react a little more to the fact that the current owner was someone with a much longer tab that she still hadn't paid. Regardless, she was willing to sell them an apprentice tab for... Do I even want to know? Yeesh, never throw away your vintage toys. Understandably, they couldn't afford it on top of everything else that month, but if anything, this little squirt was an expert haggler with a silver tongue and managed to get the price reduced. I wouldn't be too hopeful if I were you guys. The resale value on those things can drop when you least expect it. Pop gave her magical whirl, and of course proved to be more of a natural than her sister because that's kind of the running gag of the show. She even proved to be better at janitorial duties, though the sisters were fairly equal when it came to their sculpting abilities, or lack thereof. However, as they say, every artist has their fans, which for just Pop was this gentleman who I think they tried to make sound like an artist, but he sounded and looked more like a weeb. Like seriously, what kind of dork wears a headband all the time? Also, nice twitching animation on Doremi here. But yeah, for the first half of this episode, they really played up Pop's competency to the point that it did feel like they were overdoing it and committing some of those bad sequel character tropes I mentioned. But thankfully, the latter half of this episode brought things back down to earth. The next day, Pop's kindergarten was holding a sleepover at the school. Yeah, I don't know what kind of kid would ever want to spend the night at school, but Doremi was more concerned by the fact that her sister was taking her tap with her. It was a good sisterly moment for the elder, who showed genuine concern for Pop, which was nice to see after all of the squawking they did in the first half of the episode. At the kindergarten, Pop's friends, or rather simps, were all waiting for her. God, no wonder she's so damn entitled. Her only classmates who were total simps for her were of course Fish Lips and his cronies here. Yeah, I'll say right now, the fact that Kimitaka here still had his prepubescent Naruto voice certainly didn't make his bullying and antics any more tolerable. Meanwhile, the Mahodo, business was going about as well as usual. Pretty sure most people would avoid a shop that's gone through what looks like 2 bankruptcies and 2 managerial changes within the span of less than a month. Once again though, Doremi acted like a proper big sister and was worried about Pop misusing her tap. Sure enough, after Kimitaka taking his antics a step too far, Pop decided to get some payback by scaring him during a trip to the bathroom. Though, in my opinion, the scariest part about a school bathroom is using a school bathroom. Pop used her magic to summon forth some ghosts who, unfortunately, weren't Hanako-san or Kun, but rather your more traditional marshmallow ghosts. Oh well, at least she didn't summon some sadistic ghost girl in red. Unfortunately, they did end up causing chaos as Pop failed to get them under control. Lala, who had been keeping tabs on her, quickly went to inform her sister.
Lala, ポップが大変なの。
On the bright side, that window looks like it's having a good time. She also informed the other Ojamajo, and the trio proved their competency after that battle with Majiruka and cast a sleeping spell on everyone before having Pop undo her own spell. Well, I'll give this episode this. I liked its ghost story more than most Blumhouse films these days. With that, the episode ended with Pop finally, and honestly thanking her sister for all of her help, bringing things to a slightly bittersweet but still strong note in which Pop would have to reflect on her actions. Or that's how it should have ended, as instead we cut over to the next day with her successfully splitting open a watermelon. Granted, I kind of like getting a little follow-up with everyone just thinking the ghosts were a dream, but overall, I think the episode would have been better if we had just ended with Pop reflecting on her actions rather than her just being a little overconfident like she's been throughout most of the episode. Slightly awkward on the aside, this was a decent follow-up to the cliffhanger from last time. I mean, it was obvious they were never going to top the conclusion to the Majiruka arc, but this is still a nice episode, if only to show Doremi's growth both as a witch and as a sister. Oh, and Pop wasn't bad either. This is definitely an episode of two halves, and while I personally found the latter half to be superior, the former half wasn't bad, just kind of going over familiar territory. That being, as I pointed out, the running gag of Pop being more competent than her sister. Which, from the standpoint of this particular episode, kind of worked, as that cold opener even kind of played it up as though she really was meant to be like that sequel character no one asked for but gets shoved down everyone's throat regardless. Thus, I think they purposely gave her somewhat Mary Sue qualities both to set up the latter half of the episode and to possibly parody bad sequel characters that are unironically written as Mary Sue's in an attempt to say that they're better than the original. However, the issue here is of course the fact that this has always been a part of Pop's shtick. She's been portrayed as better than her sister, and even when she messes up, she still somehow ends up on top. It doesn't exactly make her all that endearing, especially when compared to that same sister. They did try to make her more likable by having her stand up against a bully, but that doesn't exactly absolve her of her own bratty behavior. Hence why I like the latter half of this episode more, as not only did we get more moments of Doremi acting like a good sister, but we also got to see some of Pop's own vulnerabilities. She can be just as, if not more impulsive than her sister, and doesn't work well under high-stress situations. Those are much more interesting traits than playing up her superiority over Doremi all the time. Now, I wouldn't say I dislike this character to the point that I would even agree with the Scrappy entry on TV tropes, but I can't say I'm exactly endeared to her either. I guess we'll just have to see if this pint-sized witch can win me over eventually. Currently, I'm putting the finishing touches on my review for this Dojishin, featuring two of my favorite superhero franchises of all time. I gotta say, while I certainly liked this book when I first read it, after reviewing it, I think it's become one of my personal favorite fan works ever, especially thanks to that ending. You'll see what I mean when I release this review later this week or so. Look forward to it. And until then though, for now my friends, and is someone baking a cake? Uh-oh. Everyone, make a run for it! Ava Beatrice and Sweet Tooth is acting up again!